Is this for you your worst Halloween movie? The worst in
Yeah,
French? It's worse than
100%.
5.
100%. 5 is like where things start to go wrong, but there's still some semblance of Michael Myers there. This is just purely it's I don't know. Like I watched this full length for the first time last night and like I couldn't even and I'm well aware of the plot and everything, but it doesn't feel real. It's just
It's a cash grab, and what is even worse is I complained in the H2 episode that H2 looks too 90s slasher. I hate that look of it. But the early 2000 slashers before Marcus Nispel and Rob Zombie started putting out content, by God, they're horrible to look at.
dog shit. Dog shit. Like
It's I don't know how really to explain how they look like. They look like some cheap soap opera. Is the best way to explain it.
and one thing I agree, and one thing I noticed too is I'm not a big editing snob. I mean, obviously I notice things like that, but like this was like abysmal. Like it was like there are moments in this movie where I think there's one like where Myers is first busting through the door like of Jamie's like room or whatever. Laurie, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? When he first busts through Laurie's door, the like the way they just edited that, it looks horrible. And we'll get into the mask and all that later, but it just looks bad. And like there are plenty of other examples of that.
Yeah, and I just love the scene where he headbutts his way through the door. And I mean, what kind of super strength does this man have?
Just out of nowhere. There's no reason for it.
He's the number 1 customer at Home Depot. Always needs a new door.
It's what happens. I guess they got the door from IKEA, but
I suppose.
It's what happens when Hollywood gets a hold of a license or a franchise and there's just zero artistic integrity there.
Yeah.
Like I'm not one I always respect any filmmaker for going out of their way to make a movie. Obviously they're being paid for it, which I'm sure is a big motivator for them, but like making a movie is stressful no matter the quality of it, which I imagine that just sucks all around. It's like you put so much work into something, if you want to call it that, and then it just comes out like this. Just...
I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis couldn't care less in this one. She plays catatonic pretty well in this one because that was just, I assume, her view on this whole project. Like she didn't care.
I'm pretty sure she's been quoted as saying, well, she's called it a joke. She's called it a complete joke. I think she called it a piece of shit a couple of times in interviews and stuff. And she donated all of her money from the movie to a charity, which is cool.
Yeah. Like she like, couldn't care less.
Oh yeah, no, this was complete 100% cash grab shit. It just ugh. Anyways,
and the scene at the hospital. I mean, should we just get into the paramedic explanation? I mean, it's on a level of stupidity, and I just found this out when I was doing research for this movie. Apparently, that idea already existed during the shoot of H2O.
I've heard, because I did a little bit of reading too, and this is all. I mean, there's so many stories, so many different stories and stuff, but like, I heard that that plan was straight from Mustafa Akkad.
Yeah, yes, that appears to be true.
The idea, he had it in his back pocket basically the whole time. 100% true. Like, it's just, and it feels I've never experienced like such a rushed job for trying to explain something. It's like they give this, I'm being generous here, maybe 2 minutes of exposition or explanation or whatever you want to call it. And then they just, it's like, that's the reason. Sorry, he's back.
And I mean, Akkad, when he came up with that idea, it's like, so speech is the only way for a human being to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any other way of communicating with each other. It's very weird. Plus, the scene in H2O when he's smashed up against a tree and he's having his hand out to, in H2O, his sister, is that the paramedic supposed, is that the paramedic calling out for help? If he can use his arm, why not? Yoink.
I was about to say, just pull the mask off.
And I
like,
mean,
as soon as Myers puts it on you, just take it off.
and it ruins such a. It's, for me, the scene in H2O isn't only a badass final girl scene. It's also the scene where he reaches out his hand of trying to, maybe like some sort of redemption or something, where we're still siblings, help me. And that kind of shows a manipulative part of Michael. So I always love that little bit where he reaches out his hand, and they completely ruined hearing this one.
Yeah, it's like, I'm all for, I'm not like, I think giving little glimpses of Michael Myers' humanity, I think it gives the character a little more interest. Because while, yes, I love the idea of a 6-year-old boy just snapping like that and just becoming totally inhuman. I like the idea, if you do it right, I like the idea of giving little glimpses into his humanity or his soul or whatever's left of him. And I think H2O, I think I saw it like maybe once. I know I said something, I've seen it a long time ago, I'm pretty sure. And I'm not a huge fan of that movie either, but that's, you can't deny how satisfying that ending is. Like, she cuts his fucking head off. Like, it doesn't get more definitive than that, unless she just blows him up. So, and I completely agree with you, man. It's just totally ruined, and he's back to being literally just like, almost, I hate saying this, but it's true in this one. He's almost just like a Jason Voorhees ripoff, the way he's busting through doors. I know I'm going on a rant here, but it's kind of hard
Continue.
not to. When he's hanging off of the side of the building, and he's just like, he's pumping iron, dude. Like, he's just holding like this, comfortable as hell. I don't get it. And there's another scene where he just casually just comes down. Like, I can barely do a pull-up, and I'm not like a weakling or anything like that. Apparently Michael Myers is supposed to be just an ordinary man. Ordinary men can't do that. My shoulder
He's
would
evil.
tear.
He's not ordinary. He's evil. It's the power of Satan.
It's the power of fucking bullshit. That's what it is. It's just,
I mean, Jason you can buy, because he's a 7-foot mutated swamp boy running around in the woods, and especially in the remake, because in the remake he's full on libertarian, living off. Elon Musk, stop interrupting. Anyhow, or Mark Zuckerberg, I suppose. But anyhow, in the remake, he's full blown living out in the woods, wilderman. And then you can buy that he can do all this stuff because he's out in the woods doing all this shit all the time. What does Michael Myers do? Plus, it's the thing is also the source of food, because for power, you need energy. And in if we compare to the Friday remake again, they kind of suggested that he hunts animals and kills them. And a deer could bring a lot of energy for exercise. In this one, they suggest he eats rats. That's not. I don't know of a single workout recipe that says cook some rats and you will be Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime.
Well, it's like it's protein, sure.
Yeah.
But like, dude, you'd be dead. Like, and I think, as wild as this would have been, I think the idea of a more like decrepit, like not less threatening, but a skinnier, something like that, like play into the fact that this dude has only been able to eat rats and shit like that, but somehow he's still going. And there's something still fueling him, despite the fact that he's clearly not in the best shape. But it's like, no, let's just copy and paste him from H2O. And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't.
No, and they still don't explain how he survived the fireball. Like, because he collapses, did they do something with his body? Did he wake up? No explanation for Halloween 2. Halloween 2 basically doesn't exist in this one, except for the stupid-ass sentence of "see you in hell, brother," or whatever she says. And it would be great to have a sort of, because this is a thing that I've been discussing previously on the podcast, where he is a prowler, Michael Myers. He's a stalker. Jason Voorhees is the one that is supposed to be the force of nature. When he starts running after you, you're dead.
Yeah.
In Myers' case, he's supposed to be a prowler and stalker, so it would have made sense to make him a sort of almost skinwalker-like character living in this house and just stalking his prey.
Yeah.
And ambushing them. Not through strength, but through intelligence.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. Michael Myers, if you look at the first Halloween, which in my opinion, I don't know what's going on with my hair right now. If you look at the original Halloween, like, that's what that character is. He's a fucking creep. He is a complete creep.
Yeah.
And I like what you said, a prowler. He's not meant to be this just completely unstoppable force of nature, which he unfortunately becomes in later sequels. There is a human element to them. So when he does get shot 6 times, 7 if you pay attention to the audio in Halloween 2. But when you get shot 6 times, 1 time in the face, and you're still going, there's an element of, well, what the hell are you? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be this unstoppable killing machine. Laurie Strode has him down for the count multiple times in that movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's the Friday franchise's marriage to the Halloween franchise is interesting, because Cunningham blatantly ripped off Halloween, and then he even admits that in interviews. I think he said in an interview, like, real talk, I just called up Victor Miller and said, hey, Halloween is making money, let's rip it off. And almost on every podcast episode, I bring up the Friday the 13th, or every podcast episode where we have talked about the Halloween franchise and Halloween movies, I bring up Friday the 13th. And that may seem odd, but they are in a sort of weird marriage.
Oh, 100%.
So bringing up Friday the 13th almost every time you talk about Halloween for an extended period of time makes sense, because they ripped off Halloween, and then Halloween started ripping off Friday the 13th continuously after that, because that one made so much money. It's bizarre, and I can't think of another instance in movie history where that is the case.
Yeah, no, 100%. I've never heard that vocalized. I mean, it's been so clear, but I've never heard it vocalized like that. And it's 100% true. You know, the fact that it is odd, just the fact that they, one ripped off the other, made a shit ton of money. Not saying Halloween didn't, but Friday the 13th was like exploded. And so I credit Friday the 13th to being really the catalyst for the slasher boom. Obviously, Texas Chainsaw and Halloween were vital instruments in that. You could even go back further, like Black Christmas and stuff like that. But I think, the people making these Halloween movies saw that. Like I said, there's no artistic integrity past 5. So it's like, let's just, I don't want to say zero artistic integrity, but for the most part, there's just not a lot there. And so they're like, oh, let's just make him an unstoppable zombie killer. And like you said, with Jason Voorhees, there's an explanation for that. With Michael, there's zero explanation for it. And it's funny that you also mentioned the fact that it's also funny that you mentioned that the whole marriage between those two franchises. And I know this is a total diversion from what, Resurrection, but I always see people, people have these fantasy matchups of like different horror characters clashing together. And people always bring up Jason Voorhees versus Michael Myers. And to me, being a traditionalist, I'm a Halloween 78 boy through and through, that I look at that and that doesn't last long. I mean, I love Michael Myers, but I love my boy Mikey, but that's over quick,
Definitely. And the marriage between these two is on a very deep level the further you go, because in a lot of cases they even share crews. This one was shot in Vancouver in 2001, I believe, and Freddy vs. Jason was shot in Vancouver in 2002.
Oh, wow.
And they share the exact same crew almost. Same makeup artists, I think the same camera team.
That's insane to think about, actually, because I enjoy Freddy vs. Jason like a lot.
Yeah. And that kind of shows that how much a director and a writer and producers play into it. Because you can have a great camera crew and you can have a great makeup crew and great special effects crew. If you're a lousy director or a director that doesn't really care, it doesn't end up anywhere. I mean, let's see, Ronnie Yu is the guy that directed Freddy vs. Jason, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And he brings an energy to Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy vs. Jason is whack out insanity. And in this one, it's just nobody cared. They saw that the internet was popular, that found footage was popular. Let's just rip off that because who cares?
Cut off again, bud.
Oh, I said that Freddy vs. Jason brings this energy, but in this one, they don't care. It's like internet is popular, found footage is popular, and this one, nobody cared.
Right. And
it's kind of like watching two different people trying something, one with ambition and motivation and one that doesn't really care. It's like comparing two people at a job.
Oh, I took a film class in college. I know all about that. I know all about that. The amount of people like, oh, I'm just doing this for a credit. And that's what Halloween Resurrection feels like. It feels like you're just doing it for a credit, that comparison's absolutely wonderful. I mean, it's insane to think about just how low the series sank in order for it to become this. I mean, granted, Halloween 5 is there, 6 is not amazing, but I still feel an element of something there. And I'm not saying that's necessarily good, but this, I just watched it. I'm like, this just feels soulless. Like it doesn't feel like anything. They didn't even try. I mean, you look, I guess we'll just bring it up right now. You look at like the continuity with like the Myers mask. Granted, it's not as bad as it is in H2O.
In H2O, it doesn't even match half the time.
Oh my God. But like with this, it's like you have that hair. Like, how did no one see that? Oh, just total Chia Pet action going on. You know,
I mean, it kind of fits the time of 2002. Upright.
And it's just like, man, if you're telling me no one on set, like no one looked at that thing. And hey, I'm holding Jamie Lee Curtis accountable for this too. No one looked at that fucking thing. Granted, she didn't give a shit anyways. But
yeah, bad example.
No one looked at that thing and was like, that doesn't really look very good. Like, no one even bothered. And that's the thing. When the hair is like good and stuff, and it's actually doesn't, I don't think this Myers looks too bad.
It doesn't.
Like, from a visual standpoint, he really doesn't look bad at all. H2O is easily the worst as far as like that and like Halloween 5 with the big old witch nose. Like, both of those like appearances are not great. But it's like that hair, man. Just oof.
I mean, they had a professional crew behind Myers. They had Bill Terzakis, rest in peace. They had Gary Jake Tunnicliffe that actually also shot one of the Hellraiser movies around the same time. I mean, Vancouver must have been a weird time to be in the film industry around that time, because in the span of, I think, a year or a year and a half, they shot Freddy vs. Jason, I think Hellraiser Part 6, and this one. So yeah, and it's and you can see right now, I lost my train of thought, but anyhow, these people, they have done a lot of projects where they show that they care about the makeup. Bill Terzakis has made or did amazing makeup throughout his career. Maybe not Wrong Turn Part 2. It has some great gore, but not the greatest mutant makeup. But I mean, he has done some great makeups, and it feels like he should have looked at that mask and said, And the same with Gary J. Tunnicliffe. He should have also kind of looked at that, or maybe not the mask, but the hair, and said, that's not supposed to be there.
And yeah, man, it's like, yeah, you nailed it, dude. It's like there's no reason for a stagehand, anybody, to be like, I don't know about that, Chief. You know, it just doesn't happen. It's such a shame too, because that original Myers mask, I mean, then this is a conversation, this is a podcast all in and of its own, but like, to me, if you want to talk about like horror masks, and I know I'm a Halloween biased guy for sure, but I don't think it gets any fucking creepier than that thing, dude. That thing is so just soulless, and to see it just have a Chia Pet haircut, it's just not great, man. It's not great.
Or maybe everybody on set looked at that thing and said, hell yeah, we're going for that.
Artistic innovation. Like who's the guy who directed 5? Dominique Gerard, I think. Dominique Gerard. And he was just saying like, I made a decision. It's like, no, you don't just get to change shit. Like,
but it's the same thing with the guy that directed Friday the 13th Part 5. In Friday the 13th Part 5, none of the actors were directed, because they went up to the director and said, how should we act? And he said, does your scene involve boobs? And said, no nudity. Then I said, why the fuck should I care? And it's, I mean, those sets, I mean, now I think those kind of sets are hopefully mostly extinct.
Oh yeah.
But still, those kind of sets where people go up to the director and they said, like, how should this look? And it's like, I don't care. I mean, those sets exist, and those sets definitely existed back in 2001 when this was shot. And I mean, when you listen to interviews with, I think it was an interview with Rick Baker I listened to, and he talked about that. He didn't mention examples, but he talked about directors not knowing what they should even shoot that day, or directors not knowing what they want. This and make up something. So
and it's, yeah, man.
So it's I mean, it could be one of those examples where they had a really talented makeup crew and special effects crew responsible for all the Meyer scenes, and Rosenthal couldn't give a fuck. So he just said, do something. And I mean, because I started thinking about this now, and I heard a lot of interviews with makeup artists where they talk about directors that they don't care about the special effects or how something looks. I mean, I recall now an interview with Howard Berger, who did the makeup effects in Walking Dead, etc. And he talked about a movie, didn't give the name of the movie, but he talked about a set where the director walked into the makeup studio and looked on like some creature they were making. And Howard Berger like asked him, like, what do you think about this? Like, who cares? That's a piece of plastic.
Which is so nuts to me. I mean, I know this is just a rant now about shitty filmmaking in general, especially in the horror world, but like a director, like, just look at that sentence, which is absolutely true. Look at that sentence. A director not caring about how something looks.
Yeah.
That's a large percentage of your job, is to make sure that things look good. Imagine if in the original Predator they would have fucking kept that, like, I don't know if you've seen it, that piece
I've
of
seen
shit
it.
costume that they had. We wouldn't have Predator. We just wouldn't, because that thing looks like shit. It's just, it's insane to me, man. It just shows money really is the driving factor for a lot of filmmakers sometimes.
Yeah, and I mean that Predator suit. I just have you heard the story about how, I'm not gonna go into the full story because then we will talk too much about it, but just how it ended, I just love. It's they gave Steve Johnson, who made the suit, these drawings made by an Estonian artist, concept artists, and he made a suit. He thought the suit was shit, but he made it anyway because that was what told by the production company. And the entire shoot with the suit completely fell apart on the original Predator shoot. Again, not gonna go into the full story, but it ended with Jean-Claude Van Damme stuck into a wire, dangling in a circle, and they couldn't get him down, and he was screaming, "I hate this suit! I hate this suit! I hate this suit!"
I always forget that he was supposed to play the Predator, apparently.
Yeah, and apparently he didn't even know that he was supposed to be in costume. He just saw starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and jumped on the project because he wanted to fight Arnold Schwarzenegger. That was the only reason he signed up for that movie. He had no idea what he was signing himself up for. And I mean, why I'm bringing this up, because I gotta tell the story when Steve Johnson, who made the suit, got fired. He was in his apartment making these trophies that the Predator has catched out in space. And he, as to quote him, I was high on cocaine because it was the 80s. And the producers and the director come storming in and like completely rips him apart about this debacle. And they look at his and they look at his creations or trophies and like, why are these props so much better looking than that piece of shit suit you made us? And then he literally stand up, grabbed I think the director by the shirt and pulled him up so he was right up at his face and said, because I designed these.
Hey, cheers.
And he lost it and just screamed, "You're fired," and walked out and shut the door. And I mean, that is one interview I recommend to everyone check out. The interview with Steve Johnson talking about the original Predator costume. I mean, or just watch any interview where they discuss an 80s set, because the 80s filmmaking, that's an invention of its own. I mean, all of it was fueled by cocaine. Everybody was high on cocaine. People were running around with guns shooting animals. It's Jean-Claude Van Damme wore a weird suit. Shooting animals is another movie. It's not Predator. That's Predator Part 3. So yeah, it's 80s movies are insanity on the screen, and they were insanity behind the scenes.
As insane as 80s movies are, I really wish we were talking about one of those crazy 80 movies, because the thing about Resurrection is, that's another thing with a lot of those movies. Yes, cocaine fueled in most instances. In the case of Friday Part 5, sex fueled. But like, at least they're entertaining. And I sat down and I watched Resurrection, and like I said, you know, if anyone, I mentioned it on my Instagram, yada yada yada, that I hadn't seen this full front to back. I have not just sat through, almost dropped my coffee. I have not just sat through and just watched this movie. And like, that's what stuck out to me the most. I noticed the editing, the bad editing. I noticed the fucking horrible acting and the shitty characters and just all of it. I noticed all of it. But there are movies that have all of that but are still entertaining. This movie is just a chore to get through. It is like a trek. Honestly, people rag on Busta Rhymes, but like, at least he's like funny. At least I can sit down and like laugh at that performance. And I love Busta Rhymes. Just know, what's his character's name in the movie? Because I don't
have
know.
no idea.
I think it's like, I'm not even gonna. It's Busta Rhymes. Come on.
I mean, what else do you need?
Right, and it's like when the kung fu stuff happens, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's shit. It's horrible. Like, it's not even Halloween at that point. At least it's like entertaining, and it woke me up, and I was like, oh, he's like full on. I knew about this, but it still shocked me to just see that in this horror movie, and he's like full on, like, wow, like he's just straight up doing kung fu. And like, he's like kicking Michael Myers' ass.
And I mean, that's the kind of don't care you should have.
Yeah.
Where like, fuck it, who cares anymore? Let's go insane.
I really, really wish, it wouldn't have stopped the movie from sucking, but I really wish we would have this would have been like The Room of horror movies, where it's just, because I hear people say like, oh, Halloween Resurrection is so bad that it's good. I vehemently disagree. Like, this is bad. It's just
it's
bad.
Too boring.
It's boring. I think the concept, for 2001, like you had said earlier, technology was, this is like where technology, I mean, it has always been rapidly, evolving, but, shit was like, it one after the other after the other. There was just constant evolution in technology. And so they wanted to use that. I think it's an interesting concept, and there have been horror movies that utilize that sort of thing very well. I think of something like The Den or something like that. But this, first of all, it doesn't feel like a Halloween movie at all. You know,
No.
I'm not one who believes you need to have like Laurie Strode to make it feel like a Halloween movie.
You need to make it feel like Halloween.
Yeah, or you need like Loomis. You know, obviously I love both of those characters, and just a little side note, I do not mind Jamie Lee Curtis being in these new ones at all. I think she's one of the best parts of this, or one of the best parts of this, newest movie that just came out. But it just like it just doesn't feel like a Halloween movie. And I know, and it's weird that I'm about to say this. I'm ranting again, but I know when I say this, I'm well aware that this was not the intention, but it feels like they just took a script with just the generic whatever killer, and they put Michael Myers in that spot, which is insane to say because I know that's not what it was. They fully 100% always intended for this to be a Halloween movie.
But it's just nobody cared. And for me, a Halloween movie, for a Halloween movie, for me to feel like a Halloween movie, it's supposed to feel like the holiday Halloween. And surprisingly, very few Halloween movies pull it off. You have few examples. You have, to a certain extent, Halloween 2, not the original Halloween. For me, it takes more than to sprinkle some leaves on the ground and call it a day. But the original Halloween, the Halloween 2, to a certain extent, the opening scene when the mental patients escape in the original Halloween kind of feels Halloweeny. So I will give it that.
Sorry, I didn't mean that.
What?
You said weenie. Sorry, go on.
This man is a man-child. Weenie.
I'm sorry. Continue.
I mean, I just laugh when British people say wee wee. Took a little wee wee. Whoever invented the British accent should not be ashamed of themselves, but be impressed, but not in the most perfect way. And that's how I lost in everybody I know in Britain. Anyhow, then we have Halloween 4, which feels like Halloween. Then we have Halloween 6, have definitely its moments where it really feels like Halloween. A show in this one does not feel like that. This feels like some weird, a show feels like Dawson's Creek, and this feels like a web series made by your uncle in 2003 when he discovered what a computer was when he was drinking with his buddies. Rob Zombie's Halloween feel both Rob Zombie's Halloween movies feel like the holiday Halloween. The first one in a sort of trailer park rednecky way, and the second one in some weird artistic way. And the 2018 one feels very much like Halloween. So I mean, you have some of them that feels like Halloween, but as you said, this one it feels dull.
Yeah, and that again, it leads into that non-existent theory I have, because it's not true, about this just being a script, and they said just pop Michael Myers in it. It just, there's no semblance. I will give it this: they do have a Halloween party in the movie.
True.
That's it. That's the only sense of anything. That and the fact that it says October 31st, I think, on the screen at one point, doesn't it? I could be totally off.
But it's just the way it looks. I mean, I can't wrap my head around why in a certain period of time between 96 and 2003, a lot of horror movies and almost every, if not every slasher movie, look like complete garbage.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's not just that they don't look like horror movies. That MTV Dawson's Creek look, it's just garbage no matter the genre.
it's horrible. It's
It
horrid.
hurts to watch.
And it's weird because like I'm always someone who prides himself on being able to take positives out of anything. It's something that's helped me with watching horrible movies like this and in life in general. But you know, with this, I think the only real positives I can give as far as like what it looks like. Again, I don't think Michael Myers looks too terrible in this. They never got the eye thing right again past like 2. They just never got it right again. Oh no, H4 and H5 don't really show his eyes a whole lot. H5, you know, you had the tear, and I could, well, if we're going off of that, past Halloween 2, he shouldn't have eyes at all. But but anyways,
He's Wolverine. He's Wolverine's lost brother. He can just regenerate himself.
And what a shot by Laurie, by the way. I know this is totally off topic, but like just straight in the eye holes, dude. That's impressive. Moving on. But no, man, the Myers house. I know we're kind of jumping all over the place.
Who cares?
Let's have a resurrection approach to this, shall we? Just fuck it.
The moment I said weenie, this podcast was lost for history.
But like, I think the actual look of the Myers house is not bad.
No.
I mean, it's generic spooky house a lot of the time, you know, just old and decrepit, which makes sense. I don't hate the idea of Michael Myers living under the house. Yeah, I don't hate that. I would have rather, you know, him just not being eating rats if he's gonna be just traditional hulked up Michael Myers, dude. Literally, like it's rats. That's the only thing that's shown. You know, I know he like doesn't he like. I think he like eats a dog in one of them or something, doesn't he? I could be totally.
Yeah, in the original one, he eats a dog.
Yeah, he eats dogs. So like, have like a dog down there or something like that. And I hate saying that because I'm a dog lover. But I mean, just make a little more sense. But like the visual of it, there's a scene that I was, you know, obviously I watched this movie. I glimpsed through it, but I watched it. And I saw this scene, and it was, you know, where the blonde chick and the guy from American Pie, which is what I've named these characters. And he's like trying to get her to, you know, show her boobs. He's like, yeah, if you flash, it'll just launch your career. Which, you know, all
Just
of
by
these
Harvey Weinstein, you said.
Yeah, basically. All of these characters have one trait about them, and that's it. And hers is like, I want to be a star, and his is, I want to be a pervert. So it's like,
ain't that the same thing?
Yeah, and you know, she's about to do it, yada yada yada. But when he tells the story of Judith, and they're doing that same similar shot where young Michael Myers came in and stabbed Judith or whatever. I think that was a really right, Michael. I think that's like the one piece of filmmaking in this where I was like actually kind of impressed, if you want to call it that. But like, I think having that same shot with it all being very decrepit and old looking, you know, and it looks pretty similar to the original shot. I really liked it. I really did. I mean, if that's that, and trust me, as far as positives go, that's like the one thing I took out of this. I was like, okay, I actually like that shot of Judith's room.
And I mean, when it comes to the house, I'm currently watching Midnight Mass, and in that series you have a couple of shots where it looks like or you have an abandoned house that actually looks like the abandoned house in this movie, and just comparing these two, in this one it looks cheap and disgusting, and in Flanagan's miniseries it looks horrifying. And you actually feel goosebumps when you see those shots, because Flanagan he knows how to shoot, and he cares a lot about his projects. Every project is his own baby. And just comparing these shots, because like what is a Myers shot in this house? It's him coming out of the shadows and like doing a stabby or a decapitation thing.
That's what it does.
And he just pops out of shadows, and you can almost see he's in full body. It's just a boring shot, not much movement or anything, and you can see everything, as I said. And then in Flanagan's series, the guy walks into the house, looks like the resurrection home, and you just see the eyes, kind of looks like cat eyes. Then he sees the hand coming out forward, and then it starts to rise and start to go up to its full height. And when it's about 6'5", he cuts over to the guy's reaction, and his head, in pure shock and terror, just keeps on rising until you realize what he's looking at is 8 to 9 feet tall. And then you just get a 1 second glimpse of this thing attacking. You can't tell what it is, and you hear a scream and the door shut. And
which is infinitely scarier.
Yeah.
Scarier? Yeah, scarier.
Yeah.
I'm always someone who, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm always someone who is a big supporter of not always just flat out just showing your villain.
Oh.
Like not always just, like you said, in Resurrection, just straight, just body shots, not like a college party, not those kind of body shots. Just straight shots of Michael just coming out, and it's plain as day what's going on. Every time we see him in the Myers house, not every time, but there's a good amount where we hear a rattlesnake noise for whatever reason, which I know I texted you about that out of context, and you were like, what? But like, no, yeah.
Girls back. Are you high? Hello, hi, American.
Just receives a text. Like, why are there rattlesnake noises?
Like, oh no, he's losing it. As
soon as you said that, I'm like, I probably should have told him that I'm watching Resurrection.
I was so confused.
Would have clarified it. But anyways, man, no, it's like, yeah. And, you know, I'll always go back to the original Halloween, because I believe that if you're going to make a movie with Michael Myers in it, that it should be one of your main, not the main sole source of inspiration, but that should be like up at the top of the list of inspiration. And, you know, you get just amazing and completely compelling shots of him, you know. And yeah, sometimes you fully do see him, but it's always so creatively done. And in this, it's just fucking have him come out and cut the blonde chick's head off, and it'll tumble down.
And it looks so cheap when it's rolling down. It looks like a mannequin.
Oh, it looks awful.
And I mean, again, you had Tedder and you had Tunnicliffe. I mean, Tunnicliffe, he can make some really realistic bodies. He used the same technique as Tom Savini, where he like buys crime scene photos and flips through them and like creates off of that. Fun job. And why does it look like a mannequin when you have these guys on? And the same thing with Terasakis. Like Terasakis, the kills in Freddy vs. Jason and Wrong Turn 2, those are great kills. Why the hell have we a mannequin body bouncing down the stairs?
No, man, it's like, and that's the thing, it's a waste of extremely good resources. Like,
definitely.
This movie could have been, I still wouldn't have liked the concept of it, but it could have been better. Like, it could have been much better than what it ended up becoming. Yeah.
And by the way, for those wondering, that I because I said 8 to 9 feet tall, I'm just gonna clarify, maybe even those that might be unnecessary, but I do know the bald eagle numbers of measurements. I don't know gallons, but I know the feet fetish measurement system, and I actually learned that from watching Finding Bigfoot and other Bigfoot documentaries.
Oh, good
Because
deal.
they always said the creature was 8 feet tall or 9 feet tall, 7 feet tall. So I would always go onto Google and Google like what is 7'2", what is 7'3", to find out what they mean, like how big is this Bigfoot that the guy saw. And that's how I learned feet.
Hey man, it's better than how I did. I just sat in the fucking classroom and listened to a teacher talk about it for like an hour.
I mean, we had in 8th grade, we talked.
But yeah, man,
We talked like shallowly about feet system, but I taught it for the power of Bigfoot.
While we're talking about editing, the power of Bigfoot, I love that. While we're talking about editing and shot composition and shot style and just the sheer just no effort or anything put into it whatsoever. If I may, I want to talk about what in my mind is like the worst offender as far as continuity, or I mean it's everything. It's really, it comes down to editing though. I think this scene is edited horribly. It's well known by a lot of people who unfortunately have know about this movie that in the original cut, Busta Rhymes' character died.
Is it true?
And yeah,
I didn't know that.
And test audiences saw it and they didn't like that. They thought Busta Rhymes should live through the movie, which I thought was weird. And his whole character is weird. Like sometimes he's like a nice guy, other times he's like a scumbag. It's like his character is so inconsistent. So when he you think he's dead, I didn't feel anything at all. Because I'm like, I don't know what to feel about this guy. So I'm damn sure
or
not
any of the characters for that matter.
What's that?
Or any of the characters for that matter.
Well, yeah, true. He was probably, if I had to pick like a favorite character for this, it'd actually probably be Laurie Strode. But if we're talking about the main like plot of the movie, it'd probably be him just by default. But nah, man. So when he gets stabbed, I think he gets stabbed in the shoulder a couple times, and he's telling Sarah, I don't know how I remembered her name, but he's like, go run. And they just left this in where he falls down and he's dead. Like, it's one thing for someone to just be knocked out or passed out or whatever, but he falls to the ground and his eyes are like open, like he's dead. Like that's the type of sell you would do if you're dead. It's like, why would you leave that in? Because then when he comes back, it makes even less sense that he came back. Because it's like just that one shot. It's like a quick little bullshit thing, but it's like, I don't understand how you leave something like that in. Just have him being stabbed, yell go, and then she just runs, and then you continue on with the movie. And then if he comes back, yeah, it's stupid. Why didn't Myers stab him in the freaking face? But at least then you're not as like, what? I don't know.
I mean, if the test audience was made up of 15-year-olds and they saw that trick or treat scene and was like, oh yeah, like that's so badass, bro. And that's the reason why they wanted him alive. But what is so weird is that that scene was added on after he was killed, apparently. So why the hell would you keep this guy alive? Most likely because maybe coincidentally, a lot of the test audience listened to rap and didn't want to see what could have been the favorite rap artist get murdered. That could be the reason. Like that, have a horror movie with Ariana Grande getting her head chopped off. I mean, the test audience might not have the most positive reaction with her head going by.
I mean, You know, and that's also probably it too. It's probably a lot of young people were like, I like Busta Rhymes. Don't fucking kill Busta Rhymes. If I was a member of the test audience, I would have just been like, I don't like this fucking movie like at all. I think it's horrible. Like, I don't understand how people were like, oh, you know, I think you could have left him in, but other than that, I liked it. It's like, no, you're lying. There's no way. I would have been like, okay, just tear the film in half and start over because
you just break into the projector room and like start pouring gasoline on it and everything.
Just do the right thing, you know? Just
light it on fire.
Sure, I might go to prison for years and years and years, but at least I know I spared people from this hell. But hey, we can't all get
driven mad by a Halloween sequel.
I've heard of shittier ways people have gone mad. So.
True, but I mean,
what?
Going insane by cash grab is horrific. Maybe people have been going mad by, I don't know, Wish, so who knows. So yeah, let's see what else is there to talk about this glorious turd of a movie.
That's the shitty thing, is like, as bad as this movie is, it's pretty cut and dry. There's really, I'm trying to think of other like potentially positive things I could say about it. You know,
Jesus, what could be a positive thing about this one? Because the thing is,
yeah, what's up? I'm sorry.
It's not too. I mean, you have the moments with the paramedic. The paramedic isn't so bad it's good, because that's just too stupid. The Busta Rhymes things, sure, maybe so bad it's good, but I mean, any B movie from the 80s have a better scene. Action B movie, that is. And the rest of the movie is so dry and boring, because people only bring up the Busta Rhymes scene and the opening, and maybe him busting through a door like the Kool-Aid Man on Halloween. So, but the rest of it is, nobody talks about the rest of it, because I don't think anybody can remember the rest of it after 2 days.
There's nothing there.
This one is soulless and uninspired. I have heard the worst crime a movie can commit is to be boring, and this one is boring straight through.
It's, yeah, man, 100%. I mean, I would 100% say that this is better, or sorry, this is worse than like Freddy's Dead. And if anyone has seen my thoughts on Freddy's Dead, I fucking hate that movie. But at least it's not boring. At least it's not just so, it's stupid. It sucks. But at least like you can flip it on. Like, I would absolutely, if my friends are like, I want to watch a shitty horror movie, I could pop in Freddy's Dead and we would have a fucking blast and shitting and just shit on it. This, if I put this on, everyone's just gonna be like awestruck. just what this movie is. So, you know, if we're comparing, like, it's like comparing diarrhea to solid shit, but you know, it's still, yeah.
I mean, diarrhea could still be exciting. This one isn't even that. I mean, if you go home from a bad restaurant and you don't make it and you have diarrhea, that's exciting as shit, pun intended. And this one is not. This one is that solid piece of crap that don't want to get out, and then it gets out, and for some reason it screams trick or treat at you.
It just so hurts. It's so fitting that a conversation, very naturally, mind you, of literal fecal matter comes up while talking about Halloween Resurrection.
Halloween Resurrection is a champagne cork shit. It doesn't want to get out, and when it gets out, it hurts.
Oh my God. On that note,
I was sitting in the bathroom. From the bathroom, I heard plunk and clunk. I was like, "What was that?" It was the Taco Bell. It came out in a more solid form than the taco it was.
ooh, I have a fun idea.
All right, bring it on.
Because I don't know if you're wanting to wrap this up. It's, we can go as long as you want, but I always, Days of Darkness.
Yeah.
I always wrap up my reviews with a kill of the film.
Sure.
Now, I will say this. While the kills aren't like the best by any means, a lot of them really aren't too bad. I will say that. Like, there are a good amount of kills in this that I was like, okay, that's not fucking terrible. There are some that are just bad. Like, again, I think the idea of the woman getting her head cut off with a butcher knife, which is a little far-fetched, but it's far-fetched for anything to just do a clean sweep and off goes your head. That's not how it works. Don't ask me how I know that, but it's just not how it works. But anyways, so I think all of these kills are just fun 80s slasher kills. And if that's another positive, I can give that. They're not great, but so I would want to ask you, Mr. Horror Nerd.
Yes.
If you had to pick for your kill of the film for Halloween Resurrection, what would it be?
It would be the tripod kill. Because I've never seen a man get murdered with camera equipment. And it's an ironic job, and it's an ironic kill because he gets killed what he works with. I mean, it's like seeing a truck driver get hit by his own truck in a horror movie. It's those types of kills you want. Ironic ones. And I mean, sure, the blood looks like strawberry jam mixed with water, but it kind of looks good. And again, or ironics. And I mean, you don't care about the characters. I mean, it's not a fun like later Friday the 13th kill where it's just pure insanity.
Right.
It's like all kills in this one very subdued to a boring point, but
it's straight to the point.
Yeah, this one was really straight to the point. And that's my favorite, even though it's maybe mediocre, kind of.
Oh yeah. Well, all the kills in this are 100% mediocre. I mean, they're like fun, but it's like I would not put anything anywhere near any of the kills in a lot of these Halloween movies, actually. But I will say my funniest kill would probably go funniest, like we didn't even talk about this, but when Michael Myers gets his like balls shocked and like you hear Michael Myers scream out in pain, which is just anyways.
That's this from a scary movie villain.
Falls back, yeah, the whole 9 yards. Funniest kill is probably going to be the food guy, Rudy.
Yeah,
it's a miracle I remember that name, but Rudy, getting just a super long butcher knife. Like, and again, I know that's a sin also of the original Halloween. That's not lost on me. And I get that this was totally an homage to, Halloween, the original, but him getting just stabbed through the door and just hanging there for hours and hours and hours.
Halloween decoration.
I would absolutely agree with you, though. I think the tripod kill is probably the most solid kill in this thing. What the hell happened to Tyra Banks, by the way?
Good question.
I didn't even remember to bring that up. What happened to Tyra Banks?
The screenwriters got bored.
I guess she got bored and just stopped showing up because she's not in the movie anymore. I guess this is like a not as interesting version of Paul from Friday Part 2. She's just, she's just gone. And it could have been totally implied that maybe she did die somewhere or something, but we never see her get killed. We never see her body, to the best of my knowledge. She's just gone.
She has left the province. She left Canada. She headed out west. She swapped places with Randy Quaid when he escaped up to Canada, and just he came on to set one day and like, hello, and the director's like,
ooh,
what the fuck,
maybe
bro?
at some point Michael Myers crushed her voice box and switched masks with her. Maybe that was going to be the angle for the next one.
You're giving me a stroke. Stop.
There's no way for that to happen, but who fucking cares? It's Halloween Resurrection. So
and that is the note we should end it on. Who cares?
I agree. Tyra Banks is Michael Myers for the ending of Halloween Resurrection. It's canon. I don't care what anybody says.
Randy Quaid should be in a Halloween movie sometime.
I agree.
He should be Michael Myers.
If he pops up in this new one, I will I don't know why that would happen, but I'll pop. I'll be like, oh my God.
They just found him out in the wilderness of Canada, smuggled him in for a shot. David Gordon Green was out hiking, and he saw the Bigfoot and was like, oh. Then he saw Randy Quaid. It's like, oh shit. he has
right
the ban from I've seen now. What's the American title? The Christmas Vacation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He has the camper van living out there in Canada with Leonardo DiCaprio from The Revenant.
God, now I really want this to happen.
Just a survivalist Randy Quaid movie with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Halloween Resurrection.
And it's all shot found footage. It's just Leonardo DiCaprio and Randy Quaid out in the wilderness.
What a pairing. Have they ever done anything? I doubt they've done anything together.
And like they start fighting because his camper van, his plane is polluting the air too much, and Leonardo DiCaprio, he wants to create like a pedal plane so they could pedal through the air and stop the aliens, because they're aliens in this project now. Pedal for Mother Earth, pedal.